everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Captiva Key. Today we're going to be working on some expansion, and not just any old expansion, but the very first expansion of the suburbs of Captiva Key. So, to start off, I'd like to apologize for the lack of uploads in the last 2 weeks. Exams have come up for myself in school, so it's been very hard to upload. But nonetheless, I've been able to get enough footage to create this episode showcasing all of the expansion I've done in the city. Please mind that there's a ton of stuff that was either omitted or I just jumped around so it looks like it was kind of random. But I build all of these suburbs around the city. A lot of them are cut and paste to what I've already done, but I decided to also build some commercial as you're seeing right now, detail that, and yeah. So another issue that I would like to address before the episode continues is when I'm recording this on Sunday, so the day before this goes live. I was starting to record some stuff for episode 8, or 9, I should say, and I realized Captiva Key has hit the City Skylines prop limit. I'm not sure if that limit has been raised with mass transit. I'll have to find out, but for the meantime, I'm going to have to get rid of old props or minimize some props where I can. So in these suburbs, later on I put down fences in between the houses. I get rid of those because they aren't too visible between the trees and bushes which I put in. Speaking of which, those are there mostly for the purpose of, it's my own little flair on things. It doesn't look exactly, these suburbs don't look a lot like the real Miami, I guess you could say, but I think it looks good anyway. Not everything here is going to look just like Miami anyway, although I try to get the important stuff in, but the suburbs just kind of have their own little flair, and they look pretty monotonous, which I think is good, because the scale of the city, well, you'll see. With the scale of the city as it is, the amount of suburbs that I have done by the end of the episode, or at least what you'll see by the end of, or beginning of next episode, I don't plan on going with these, I guess, I don't want to say old, but the inner city suburbs. So after that, I'll start with a little bit more modern stuff, and the way I see it is, how do I put it? The nicer residences will be towards the outside of the city, whereas the, I don't want to say poor, but the more low-income ones are towards the inside of the city, in terms of housing. Obviously, condo buildings are different, as wealthy people like to live on the waterfront, but that area in between the outside of the city and, I guess, the very waterfront is more or less for low-income residents. Same goes sort of for this commercial. This commercial I'm building here is kind of like your fast food, low-income, sort of not really flashy sort of stores. Some are. Later on in the episode, I go for a bit of the gentrification style thing, but for the most part, it's not very flashy or anything, I guess you could say, which I think is good, because for the most part, I've been building really nice, modern, luxurious areas, and I needed to mix that up. So, yeah. I feel like talking about the prop limit again. I got prop unlimiter, which I don't really like, but I'm using it to replace some of the really... using Move It makes things a lot easier. So with say I have a construction site, I like to replace the construction site with, because I guess what prop remover does, or prop unlimiter I should say, it makes certain parts of it makes certain props, the ones that you use with it, they can't be touched with Move It or anything. It's kind of weird, so it's hard to explain. Like, they're not counted with the prop limit, so it's hard to explain, but nonetheless, it's a lot easier to do with Move It. So like, if I'm using very similar pieces in a construction site, which there are a few scattered around the city, what I'll do is I'll copy and paste the building with the prop unlimiter section, I guess you could say, and then I'll it'll reduce the amount of props, because each of those takes up, like, I almost want to say 200 props, like, it's insane. The main way I choose to go about these suburbs is to duplicate one of the little blocks and then use the buildings from it and create new ones, and then detail the area in between. There are certain points where I get a little lazy with it and just copy blocks entirely, but that's only for the sake of monotony, because I can't detail everything, which I guess comes back to prop unlimiter. I can't detail everything, and if I try, it'll just be a mess, which and not only that, it's not always fun to detail everything. Like it's nice, but with something as big as this on the same scale as this, like building the entire city of Miami, per se, it just becomes strenuous to try and detail everything. And I'm not saying I'm the best detailer, which I'm definitely not, and I rush things, but I want to at least, I want to get a general idea, but don't be surprised if in the future I don't detail areas just as much. I'm hoping with the suburbs I won't have to use just as many props, which will really be good, and I'm liking to think most of the props will just be condensed to the inner city and the industrial area. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. I could see maybe in the future props being used in like malls and stuff like that, but from here on out, it's going to be just not really that kind of thing, you know. Like I'm not going to be doing the same sort of stuff I've already been doing, which is a lot of urban design. I'll still be doing that near the waterfront, I suppose, because in Miami they just that's the only comparison I have. But around the waterfront, there's condo buildings and towers for people to either go for vacation or whatnot. So in the grand picture, because I guess this is a good time to talk about that, I'm not sure if I'm going to include all of the sort of features of Miami. I'm hoping to include something like a little Havana, so like a Cuban district, or maybe something that somehow resembles that, but I'm not sure how I'll go about that. Same goes for Fort Lauderdale. So that's like, I want to say like the suburb of Florida, but I guess that's not a very good accurate way to describe it. But yeah, so hopefully I can include something like that where it's like a beach town or a beach city. There is high density buildings there, condo buildings, even office towers, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to incorporate some of that somehow in the future. But the big feature probably of the post inner city downtown era of Captiva Key will be this is a feature across many Florida suburbs of where the suburbs have water in between the houses. This sounds really silly, but like there's ponds and rivers, mostly man-made. I'm sure it has some kind of irrigation purpose, but also maybe just an aesthetic thing. I'm not really sure, but we'll be doing a lot of that once we move past the inner city stuff, and that'll be on both the Miami Beach Island area, the Fort Lauderdale-like area, and just on the outside of the city. I might, just to avoid the amount of extreme lag that I have in the inner city right now, to avoid that, what I might do is do spaced out communities, sort of seen on the west coast of Florida, not like the east coast where it at least appears very dense, but on the west coast it's not quite like that. The communities are really spread out, so I might try to achieve something like that, just because it'll make things a lot easier, and I can fill in a lot of areas with foliage, and hopefully it'll still look aesthetically pleasing. I just don't want to have to do super dense suburbs right up until I hit the building limit, because one, that's repetitive, and two, it won't look very good from above. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, right now, as you see, I'm building some more waterfront condo buildings. You'll see me do this quite a lot, I guess, throughout the series, but I'm sure you guys already know that. I wasn't quite sure what to fill in this space with, so I decided to fill it in with some trees. Not trees, grass. Lots and lots of grass. I use the Pidelmo assets, maybe some by Mr. Mason, I'm not quite sure, but I use quite a lot of them just to make it look like it's empty, unused land, which is something I've done before. I opted against palm trees just because I didn't think they would fit, but yeah, this ended up looking alright. In the future, maybe I'll put something here like bus stops, but I don't know, I like how it ended up looking, and then I use a lot of decals and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll leave you guys for a few minutes, and I'll be back. So I'm back, and right here, what I start to do, I believe, is make a parking lot area underneath the elevated highway that runs sort of through the city. It's not really through the center of the city, but it runs, I want to say, behind the downtown area. It's a really good way for me to decide where the suburbs should start, and you'll see what I mean later on. I fill in a lot of these areas with grass. I don't show me building all of these areas because it's sort of repetitive. I'm not sure if I've actually showed me building these suburbs yet. Oh well, I do anyway. You can kind of see what they look like. I end up detailing around them. I think I've lost a lot of footage, or there's just a lot of repetitiveness. But I go at it with these bushes, and the beech tree asset looks amazing. And yeah, so I just decided to fill it in with the area in between this train track. I didn't really space it out very well because I'm sure the people who live here don't really care if there's trains behind them. Same goes for the highway. Just wanted to fill in some grass, mostly because it's supposed to look unkept. But I did put like a little wall, or like almost like a fence. Very rough. That was kind of the look I was going for. But yeah, I have a fence there. I intentionally left a piece of it broken because realistically, the people who live in these areas might want to jump a fence. Who knows? Yeah. So I tried to just straighten out this little elevated segment of rail. It still looks really rough as I'm detailing it, but yeah, I don't know. I think it looks okay at the end. So I do, like I said, put in these bus stops, which look really good. I might have used them a little excessively, but it looks like a bus terminal. That's probably the best way for me to describe it. So I go at it with more suburbs. This area is a little more secluded from the rest of the city. You'll see what I mean. But the goal is eventually to have a very continuous spread of suburbs, which does end up happening. At least by the end of this episode, or in the cinematics, everything sort of looks complete, but there's a lot of holes and there's a lot of unfinished areas. Yeah, those I'll have to work on that, but already right now, like in real life, the city is looking a lot better than how I left it at the end of this episode. Things look a lot more fluid, things flow a little better, and there's still plenty of work to be done, but I've set myself some personal goals, such as an area within a certain set of roads, what to fill in, and I'm slowly meeting that goal. And once I fill that area in, I am probably going to start to move out to the little islands where the wealthiest of the wealthy live, and probably out to the Miami Beach area, where I guess it'll be similar, but there will be suburbs. I'll probably try and get more commercial in because the demand for commercial and office is really high. I'll have to find a way to accommodate that in the city, but I'm not quite sure how. I might convert some residential buildings in the downtown area to office and then just give them like 3,000 offices or something crazy like that. I'm not quite sure, but right now I'm just detailing this back area, and I didn't want to make a typical back area, so I decided to go with some asphalt and parking lot. It looks really good. I can safely say that this asset doesn't look too modern. It does, but there's plenty of more modern things out there on the workshop or that I've used in the city. So I could say this is like a 1980s, 1970s development, just so that I don't have that whole futuristic look going in the city, which is something I've kind of opted against. But yeah, I put down planters. I use these planters in particular because they're the only ones that can go, like, I can elevate. And when you're using ploppable asphalt raised above the ground, that's something you really have to be careful about, because if you can't raise the planters, then you're going to have this really awkward thing where there's either plants sticking out of the ground, or you're just getting the top of the planter and not the curb around it, which I really don't like, because then it just looks like it's a patch of grass in the middle of a parking lot. So yeah, that's something we'll have to work out. So right here, I do something really, what I find really interesting with this backlot area. Instead of putting like a parking lot or any of that, I decided to put a like a drainage pond, which would probably be really important in a city like this where the water needs to run off. Might not have been the best idea to put it right next to the ocean in hindsight, but I guess it could also double as a sewage area or something like that. Or just maybe, I don't know, the developer who built this didn't feel like putting a parking lot. I don't really know. But I do end up working on the bus, highway, tram looking thing. I still don't have a name for it. I'm sure I'll have an acronym one day for this thing. But I work on it a bit. Right now in real life, on the other end of the city, I have already created a sort of transition into a regular road. It's a regular road with tram tracks, so the trams don't stop, and neither do the buses. The buses will continue. That might be somewhere where I'd like to expand in the future, but like I said, once I get within a certain number of, I fill in the area within a certain set of roads, I don't really see the use in expanding very much. Mostly, at least not that at this time, because hitting the prop limit this early in the series it's not discouraging, but it kind of bothers me, and it tells me why so many big YouTubers, for City Skylines at least, have chosen not to do things like this for their new cities. They've sort of stayed to smaller scale cities, especially considering what I've achieved in all this time. So, yeah, I guess in hindsight this might not have been the best idea, but still, even between Prop Unlimiter and the hopeful increase in props I can use, I'll be able to keep the series fresh, and I'll hopefully be able to keep things going without having to delete props across the city, which is something I really don't want to do, but it's like a last-ditch effort, which really I'm actually considering doing, just going across the city, going in backlots where there's things, and since starting on YouTube and everything, I can just clear those areas full of props and just start fresh with more props somewhere else. But I don't think that'll be necessary. I think what I have so far with the prop unlimiter system, where I just replace big segments of props, which won't contribute to the prop count, will be good. I'm just worried that down the road I'll have a really bad experience where the game will not work. So I'll make a save. Actually, I have a save game. I'll make a save game, guaranteed, where at this point, so that nothing is changed, so that before prop unlimiter, so that way the game doesn't crash and there are no issues. I haven't, because I've destroyed so many props already, I haven't hit the actual prop limit of the in-game props, not with prop unlimiter. It's weird because they're two very separate things, but nonetheless, yeah, what I'm doing right here might be what's causing that, the excessive use of ploppable asphalt. I use decals, and I use, well, as you can see, the ploppable asphalt here, and I go at it, and this area ends up looking amazing. I built this parking lot a while ago, but it's this giant expanse of parking, and I think this is something that a few American cities, people who live in certain American cities, can relate to seeing. It's just areas underneath a highway that no one wants to live in, no one wants to build on, so it's just filled in with parking lots. And the asphalt just makes this area look 100 times better. It looked nice before, no doubt, but right now with the asphalt, it just looks amazing, and you'll see that in the cinematics. I am so happy with this, and really, I wouldn't change this. I wouldn't replace this at all. Between all the things I do in that area, it's just amazing. Now I'm moving on to expansion towards the north end of the city, which I don't showcase too much, which is kind of strange. It might show up later because of how I organize this video. I'm not quite sure, but I tried to do a strip mall where the parking's in the front. You know, it's really common sight. It doesn't work out too well, which is surprising. You would think it would be more applicable in the game, but it's not a big deal. It sort of works out. I guess if you were at street level, it would look a lot better. But nonetheless, it looks really good. I didn't want to use asphalt, but now when I see parking lots, even without asphalt and just with decals, it discourages me a little bit because they look worse, obviously, which I don't like. But yeah, this is just typical backlot. I didn't really feel like putting a lot of effort into it. Just kind of went over it with a ton of the stained decals, and yeah. So yeah, that gives you an idea of how much the city's expanded. There are certain things I could almost certainly do to cut down on my prop usage, which is probably going to be a common theme of what I'm talking about in this episode, just because it's bothering me so much, and I just found out about it today. So I do put a lot of those wear decals over roads, and it looks amazing. You'll see them in cinematics. It looks great. but it's so unnecessary. Like, there are things I'm doing, and whether or not they've been done fast or like I've paid a lot of attention to them, they're unnecessary. But because how great they look, there's no reason for me not to include them, because it's realistic in my mind, and it's far better than just, like, I would rather keep that, because at a visual level that looks more aesthetically pleasing or aesthetically unpleasing than, say, a backlot. Because yes, there's a lot of effort put into a backlot, but worst case scenario, I just end up making a solid block with no backlots at all, and it's just buildings, which would probably almost look better than having a backlot, but I'm not quite sure. Yeah, so I ended up detailing this little area in between all these off-ramps. I'm not sure if anyone out there has been worried about these, but I definitely wanted to do something with this area, and I wasn't sure. At first I wanted to use ploppable asphalt and all these different things, but because asphalt is like a flat, it's not like a texture that I could spread across in Surface Painter. That's a good mod idea out there, guys, if anyone wants to do that. But yeah, I couldn't do that, so I decided to make it a more rough looking area, and yeah. So I switch around a lot, as you can see in this episode, but I've moved on to this, I don't know how many lanes this highway is. At certain points, this is probably like 14 lanes. It's insane. But I decided to create an off-ramp down to this avenue. I could have put way more lanes than I did, but I opted against it because this highway is too wide already, and making it any more complicated would just be insane. And there is no use doing that at all. That would just be torture. Looking at it would become an eyesore, really, especially because it's elevated. At least at ground level, it looks better, but when it's elevated, you've got all these. It's hard to explain, but it doesn't look nearly as good as if it's on the ground. So yeah, I didn't want to use, I guess in hindsight, as many elevated highways in this city, so I'm trying to sink some of these down into the ground, but I definitely like having this one elevated and the one that runs through the city, the heart of the city, that it connects to. Having these two elevated is a amazing decision by myself. I guess I'm patting myself on the back, but like, it's perfect because this one comes off a bridge, so it makes complete sense to stay elevated. There's no reason this should go sink into the ground or anything. Same with the other one. There's so many off-ramps and connections that it doesn't make any sense to not have it elevated. I guess there's an argument that it could be, but I think it looks amazing. Like, I don't usually make nice-looking elevated highways or anything, but it looks phenomenal if you ask me. So yeah, I left it. I'm just messing with different things here. It took a lot of effort to make the off-ramps work and make sure everyone could go in every direction, because that was an issue I was struggling with for a while. Because when you have so many ramps, it's not like in real life where they all, like, you can just switch between them or anything or something like that. You have to make the manual connection, which becomes, that sounds so strange, but you can't, if you were to get off on this ramp right now, you would not be able to just switch into the middle lanes. You would have to, in City Skylines at least, I would have to make that manual connection because these roads can't be connected. I guess that has something to do with merging lanes and how, well, we know they aren't ever coming to City Skylines, but nonetheless, my point still stands. Yeah. So this off-ramp, I did put a fifth connection because I guess there's, you could have, I have certain styles of intersections when it comes to reaching just regular roads and not highways. You've got your typical four-way connection where there's four things coming down to the road, which are super common and they're everywhere. Then there's your six-way one. I don't know how to describe it, but it's got two of the, I don't know how to describe it. It's got two that come off the highway and don't stop, or at least, no, the other way around. They go onto the highway and you don't stop for them. And then it's got two that when you get off the highway, you have to stop for, and then the two that you can also get on continuously. That was a terrible way to describe this, but they're very common, and yeah. The final type would be your typical cloverleaf interchange. That's what it's called. Semi-cloverleaf. That's what the previous interchange was called. sorry for having to clear that up now, but a full cloverleaf interchange would have been ideal, but putting that in such an area would have just been hell for me to build. So yeah, I finally showcased more of my suburb building. I used vanilla assets. I think these are vanilla at least. And you know what? They look fine. I would remove the hedges, but I think the dirtiness that they add to it, the crudeness, just goes to show how rough the neighborhoods are. Because they're not supposed to be very pretty neighborhoods. There's very little police coverage to help add to that effect, because hopefully I'll get some police cars driving through here. I built a little public housing thing there with some sort of vanilla asset. But yeah. So yeah, guys, that's it for this episode of Captiva Key. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you'll enjoy the cinematics I've prepared. They show everything I've done in this episode, both on and off camera. And yeah, so there's probably some things that you didn't see. I apologize for that. And the next episode, I sort of flesh out a lot of things I left behind, and hopefully I'll be able to start working on the islands. There's no guarantee, because I have not started working on episode 9 at all. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. I apologize for no uploads in the last while. I've been very busy, but I'll be sure to see you guys next time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.